Okay, this is the October 5th talk on healthy bones and using Shakavansya Ayurveda methodology. My name's Elizabeth Innes, and I have another guest that just showed up. So Germina is there. So Mary and Germina are there. So my talk is based on the knowledge that I gained from Vajramakant Mishra and knowledge that I've used for the last 20 years to keep my bones strong and healthy. I The Ayurveda that most people are familiar with is, thousands of years old, but even 1,000 or 500 years ago, people didn't have to deal with all the modern day toxins, the pharmaceuticals with all their side effects, and all the supplements, which may be just chemicals, and we don't know what binders are in them. There's just so much there. So Vajra Mishra came to the West and he saw all of this and he took his Ayurvedic knowledge and he adapted it to modern times. And the ancient doctors actually said this would be needed because they had no idea 2,000 years ago that there would be antibiotics and birth control pills and petroleum coming out of cars, all of that. So just to introduce myself, this is why I started writing this little ebook, which has now turned into a little talk. So how did someone who started off as a pharmacist like 50 years ago end up as an Ayurvedic practitioner? Went to school just like everybody else for, at the School of Pharmacy for 4 years, and I did a year of residency at the Ottawa Civic Hospital. Then I worked at another hospital for 2, 3 years. And then one day I was at work and the light went on. Why do we wait till people get sick? Why don't we stop them from getting sick? And then I also kind of saw that people's stress, their minds was making them sick. So I became interested in psychology and meditation. I became a meditation teacher in 1974, then came back and just worked at regular drugstores and became a herbalist at Dominion Herbal College. And then in 1977, I first heard the word Ayurveda. I was on a long meditation course in Switzerland that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi organized. And at that time, this meditation organization was bringing in these really good doctors from India. And Vajra Mishra was one of them. And I'd heard of him because some of my friends had used him as their doctor. And then I finally got to meet him 20 years ago. And they say when the student's ready, the teacher will come. So I think I would like to, even though there's only a few people here this time, rather than 50 that were here this time, I'd like to start with Hrit Pundarik mantra, which he recommended we start because it opens up the heart of the teacher and aligns them so that what comes out of their mouth is useful. So here it is. Hrit Pundarik Madhyastham Prata Surya Samaprabham Ashankushtaram Somyaham Varadabhayahastakam Trinetram Raktavasanam Bhakta Kamadudham Bhaje. And basically, this mantra is asking for the help of the Divine Mother to help us be protected, remove fear, to have wisdom in our lives to guide us on the right path. So that's my little introduction. And since I've written the little ebook, I started looking at some of the incredible statistics on osteoporosis. I knew it was prevalent, but 200 million people globally, 2 million in Canada alone, and 10 million in the US, and 44 million with bone concerns. That would be like osteopenia. And there apparently is a fracture every few minutes happening. $19 billion spent every year on healthcare costs for fractures. in the US, and they're saying it'll rise to 25 billion by next year. So that's incredible. So there's a lot of people that have this concern. So there must be something that everybody's doing that is contributing to this. So let's see what that might be. And here's a little bit more statistics. 1 in 3 women will break a bone over 50, and 1 in 5 men. And once you break a bone, psychologically, it has a big impact because you become afraid that you might fall again. You withdraw from social activities. If you break a hip, your independence is greatly affected, and you might need a walker, a wheelchair, or have to go to a nursing home. So it's a serious problem. Let's talk about bones. Can you see the whole thing? Mm-hmm. Okay. So somehow I know a lot of people think of bones as hard things that don't change much, but bones are very much dynamic and alive and are constantly being remodeled. So old bone is being taken down and new bone is being formed on a continual basis. So the word osteoclast with a C, clast, like cleave, cut, is what reabsorbs the old bone. And osteoblast, or B for building, is what makes new bone. So our entire skeletal system is completely replaced every 10 years. So the bones you have had 10 years ago are completely different from the bones that you have today. So the bones in this picture, you can see there's blood vessels going into the bone. There's nerves going into the bone. There's bone marrow in the middle. And on this little picture here at the top right, you'll see how the blood vessel goes in between all the protein matrix and feeds it with all the nutrients and oxygen so that we're constantly repairing our bone. So what can we do to improve that remodeling or rebuilding of the bone? I will add at this moment that the drugs that are currently out in the market in the pharmacies are called biophosphonates. And the way they work is they stop the osteoclasts from reabsorbing old bone. So that bone stays there. So in one way, you might say, well, that makes a lot of sense. We don't want the bone to be dissolved or absorbed. But the problem is that that the whole cycle of reabsorption and rebuilding is blocked. So the bone stays there, but the bone becomes brittle and not alive, not dynamic. So a lot of people find that even though they are taking these medications, that their bone density or their bone strength, it's not just density of the bone has to be flexible and dynamic and alive as well as being dense. So going on further. So how does Shakavansya Ayurveda look at building healthy bones? So in Ayurveda, it is taught that tissues form in a sequential way. I've put this beautiful picture of a cascading waterfall. So that's how tissue is formed. When we eat food, drink water, all the herbs and nutrients that we have form first plasma. Some of it stays as plasma, the clear blood, and part of it is then transformed into red blood cells. Some stays as blood cells. The next stage is turned into muscle, and then fat, bone, bone marrow, and reproductive tissue. And you will notice that I put fat as a big word right in the middle. To have strong bones, we have to have good quality fat. If the fat isn't there, there's no nourishment to build the bone. if you go to people in the street and say, what do you need to build strong bone? They'll say calcium. I would say 99% of people would say calcium. Ayurveda also thinks calcium's, and we'll talk about calcium later on, it's important. But more important is the good quality fat. And it's not just any fat, it has to be saturated from animals. So it would be like butter, ghee, and other fat from that's saturated. So I've mentioned ghee as the best fat. It's a fat that has been used in Ayurveda for thousands of years. And I call it a miracle food. I cook with it every day. And I would say that this would be the first habit that people need to incorporate in their life if they want strong bones, is to eat ghee on a daily basis. Not just eat it, but cook with it. Cook vegetables and lentils and chicken and whatever else you cook. Put a little bit of ghee in there with some spices, which we can talk about as well. And so this miraculous fat, it was used in ancient times to actually carry herbs into the cell. And why is fat needed? Because the cell wall, the membrane around every cell is made of fat, of cholesterol. And you need fat to get across that membrane into the cell to bring the nutrients into the cell. So besides doing this wonderful thing of carrying nutrients into cells, it also lowers cholesterol. It's high in something called CLA, or conjugated linoleic acid, which actually builds muscle, reduces inflammation, and burns the not the good fat. It also is high in something called butyrate, which prevents leaky gut. So all of that, and I'm just showing you a tiny little bit of the benefits of ghee, just to kind of whet your appetite. Now, modern science doesn't talk about fat directly, but I'll just show you a few little things that will indicate that there were signals that fat is important in health, and especially in bone health. In the 30s, there was a dentist by the name of Weston Price who traveled the world. At that time in the 30s, he could see that the American people already then were getting sicker and sicker, especially their dental arch, their teeth. And so he went to about 14 countries and looked at all the healthiest people he could find. And he found a common denominator, and he didn't know what to call it, so he called it Activator X. And at first he thought it was vitamin D, and eventually he called it vitamin K2. Well, guess where the high concentrations of vitamin K2 are? They are in ghee. 30 times higher in ghee than in butter. So where else can we see fat as important in building bones? So let's look at quickly at fat-soluble vitamins. This gives us more support of how fat and bone health are connected. So what are the fat-soluble vitamins? Vitamin D, which isn't actually a vitamin, it's a hormone, but it's fat-soluble and it's needed for bone mineralization and calcium absorption. Vitamin K2, which we said was Activator X, is important for the synthesis of something called osteocalcin, which it's a protein that binds calcium to the bone. Vitamin K1 is also fat soluble. It's important in blood clotting, not so much in bone directly, but it helps us to heal bones when we're heal cuts when we're cut ourselves. Vitamin A, it helps for the development of osteoblasts and osteoclasts, which we have already learned are important in keeping the bone alive, reabsorbing it and rebuilding it on a continual basis. So all of these things, are found in our regular food. I put some of them up here, the colorful vegetables like carrots and sweet potatoes, greens, and fatty fish like salmon, and the ghee, especially if it's grass-fed, from grass-fed cows. So now another important part of this puzzle is liver, the liver of our body. And here you'll see right in the middle of the page a picture, it's kind of a diagram of our liver, our gut, and our mouth. So this is called in physiology and pharmaceutics, it's called first pass. Normally, pharmacists don't like the liver to destroy the drug. They want to get the drug into the blood. So a lot of times drugs are put onto the skin, like a nicotine patch or an estrogen patch, or like that. We apply it through the skin. So, but what happens when we eat food or we take a drug, or sometimes a drug is given by injection to completely bypass this. But normally, if we eat food or we swallow a pill or we take our vitamin C supplement or whatever supplement we're taking, it goes into the intestines and the stomach, and from there goes with a vein, the blue vein you'll see going to the brown liver there. And the liver has in it enzymes. We call them enzymes in modern science. The ancient doctors of Ayurveda called them burners, and they said the liver has five burners that would metabolize the five elements. They didn't have the scientific terminology, but they knew that the liver did an important job of transforming the food that we eat into intelligent blood that's specific for our needs. The liver also detoxifies all the chemicals in our air, even the herbicides and pesticides in our food. It has a big job. So if we give it too much work, it becomes inflamed or hot. A hot liver then cannot properly digest and transform the food we eat into intelligent blood that is needed for us. So the best food that we can eat is food that's freshly prepared and good and clean, as with the least pesticides and herbicides. We do the best we can. It's almost impossible in today's age to do that, but preferably something cooked as well, because now we know that there are oxalates in food and leptins and all kinds of things that aren't beneficial for us. The vegetable has put that there to protect itself, but if you cook it, a lot of those negatives get destroyed, and the cooking also starts digestion. So it's not just the food that you eat, but whether your body digests it and assimilates it into your cells to nourish all the cells of your body, including the bones. Now, a lot of people are big on supplements, but I should say, unless there's some very specific reason that you're taking a supplement and you know it to be essential, think about what it does for the demands on your liver. Because the liver has to take that supplement and transform it into something that your body can use. Now, what other things can we look at that might be affecting our bone health? One of the things that a lot of us do that are concerned, and I did, is go for a bone density test. But, by that time, if the bone is already thinner and not strong, it might be a little late. So what can we do to see if we are weakening our bones? And one of the things is test the saliva pH, the acidity or alkalinity of our saliva. It's a simple test that you can do. It just takes seconds. You take a little slip of paper, you put some saliva on a spoon and put it there and look at it, and the color will tell you the alkalinity or lack of your saliva. So knowing the pH of your saliva will give you a baseline of the acidity of your blood, because normally the saliva pH is anywhere from 6 to 7.6. If you're lucky. My saliva, I have to work really hard to keep my saliva at 6 and above, between 6 and 7. I'm always happy if my saliva is 6.5. The reason this is important because the blood range, the pH range in the blood is much, much narrower. It's only 0.1 of a point, from 7.35 to 7.5. So this slightly alkaline blood is essential, because if the blood goes more acidic than 7.35, it affects all kinds of things, our heart, our enzyme activity, all kinds of cell mechanisms in our body. So the body, being highly intelligent, wants to keep the blood in this small, narrow, alkaline range. And how does it do that? If we're creating acidic blood, it uses the largest store of alkalinity in our body, and that's the calcium in the bones. It will leach the calcium and weaken the bones if your blood is acidic. So a hot liver also creates acidity. And so it's important to keep the liver cool. Next, what else can we do to strengthen our bones? Magnesium. Magnesium, the symbol for magnesium I found out in Chinese is called the beautiful mineral. And I can see why. It does so many things. There's a wonderful woman, Dr. Carol Deans, who's written a whole book on magnesium and all its benefits. I think she spent 20, 30 years working on magnesium. And so I wrote on this page a few of the benefits. It strengthens bones, balances blood sugar. It relaxes the muscle. Whenever I get tight shoulders, I always put magnesium lotion on my shoulders and helps to relax the muscle. It keeps your body alkaline. It's beneficial for the heart. It strengthens your teeth. Why does it do so many wonderful things? Because it's needed in so many chemical processes, enzymatic pathways all over our body. It's an essential mineral. However, it does have a little problem. If you take it orally, you have to be careful. There's so many different magnesium salts. Like when you look at a molecule has two parts. It has a positive and a negative. So the magnesium is the positive, and then there'll be a negative part. And the negative part will be either a sulfate or a chloride or a oxalate or a citrate or whatever, oxide. So these different kinds of magnesium. So the best magnesium is magnesium chloride. It's easily absorbed through the skin, and it's used directly by all the cells and enzymatic pathways. Magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salts, which everybody knows that a lot of people will take an Epsom salts bath. It's relaxing. It helps relax their muscles and all that. It also probably will pull toxins out of your body, just as magnesium chloride does. However, magnesium sulfate has to be converted to the chloride before it's used in the body. So take a bath with magnesium salts. There's a product I like. It's called Ancient Minerals, which is about 50% magnesium. It comes from an ancient bed of minerals. And you can buy it in a bag at a health food store. Or lots of companies are now making about a 10% magnesium lotion or solution. I think they call it magnesium oil or something like that. So magnesium's out there. We just have to know how to use it best so it doesn't irritate our lining of our gut. I mean, you could use it for a short time, but over a long period of time, it could be problematic. And now one of my favorite topics is hydration using herbs. So everybody knows the importance of hydration. Almost everybody carries a water bottle these days. We know that water is important to get into the cell to remove toxins, so these toxins can be excreted via the kidney. But not all water. Sometimes do you never notice you drink a couple of glasses of water, you think, oh, great, I'm hydrating, and the next thing you know, you're just running to the bathroom and it's just come out the other side. So is the water getting into your cells? That's the question. I think I'll start with a story to tell you how important this is. I was working in Penticton years ago at Zeller's Pharmacy. This was shortly after I had just met Dr. Mishra, and I said, "Oh, Dr. Mishra, Ayurveda is so difficult. It's so complex. There's so many things to learn. How do you know when you're ready to help people using Ayurveda?" No, he says, "Don't worry, I'll give you something simple to do." And one of the first thing he taught us is this recipe for what he called smart water, which is using spring water and adding coriander, fennel, Indian sarsaparilla, and mint to water and drinking it like a tea. So I was at work one day and this woman came in, and this is rare. She handed me a prescription and she said, "Could you please print out the side effects?" I thought, whoa, this is very unusual. So I did. I gave it to her and she read them and she looked at me. She says, "Well, why would I take this? The side effects are worse than my disease." And I knew that the prescription she got for was for inflammation of the gut. And I said, "So what's your disease?" She says, "I'm having 12 bowel movements a day. I can't go out of the house. I can't go to work. I can't do anything. And I've had all kinds of colonoscopies, all kinds of tests. And the doctors say, well, it seems like my gut's inflamed, but they don't really know what the disease is." So I thought, well, gee, I just learned something. I'm going to see if she'll do it. So I gave her this recipe for the tea. And I thought, well, is she going to go buy all these things and make the tea and drink them? I said, "Well, why don't you do this for 2 weeks and come back?" You know what? She came back 2 weeks later. She did it. And all her symptoms were gone from just this simple thing. So what happened? So I did call Dr. Mishra and said, "I'm amazed. The recipe you gave us for that tea worked wonders on this woman." And he said, "Well, a disease has a progression, and her disease hadn't progressed enough so that the doctors could name it. You have all these symptoms, but it's not a full-blown disease. So modern doctors need a disease that they can prescribe something for. But if somebody's just got symptoms, they don't know what to do. Whereas Ayurveda knows what to do with these symptoms. So this is why, doing these simple things, they seem simple, but they have profound effects. So that's a long story for something to make you realize the importance of hydration using herbs. If you just do that, because the coriander is a wonderful herb for carrying, supporting kidney function, so toxins go out of the kidney. Fennel is great for digestion. Indian sarsaparilla, and I put a special note here, it detoxes the fat tissue. You'll remember right at the beginning, I showed that the fat was one of the tissues right at the beginning that is the precursor for bone. So we need to make sure that that fat tissue doesn't have any toxins in it so it can make healthy bone. So you make this tea and you sip it. You just have it in a thermos or a container and sip it during the day. The other thing is water. There was a very famous scientist by the name of Emoto who talked about how water has memory, and um, he actually did experiments where you said different words to water and it changed its crystalline structure. So, according to Ayurveda, spring water, water that has not been chlorinated, most water coming out of the tap in our homes is chlorinated water. So you either have to um, boil it and put it outside so it can again pick up the life forces of nature, because that's what we want. We haven't had time to talk about prana or life force or chi today, but water and food that's freshly prepared and not grown with a lot of chemicals has more prana or life force in it, which is what we need. Now, that famous mineral called calcium that I said earlier on, that if you walked up to someone on the street and asked them what was good for building bones, they would say calcium. However, the question is that the calcium that we're taking might not be doing what we think it's doing. It might not be getting into the bones as needed, and worse, it might be having side effects that are negative. And this is a little excerpt I got from the Journal of Internal Medicine. I actually got it offline, and there was a research study done on calcium and whether it actually benefited bone reabsorption and rebuild. And calcium reduces that reabsorption and is beneficial on a short term. However, on a long term, there was no real benefit that was noticed. What they did notice, there was a lot of negative effects, like gastrointestinal side effects that led to hospital admissions, uh, kidney stones, renal calculi, kidney stones. And the scariest one is 20 to 40% increase in myocardial infarction. That's heart attack. So each of these alone, the study said, would nullify or neutralize the benefits of taking calcium. The ancient doctors knew that about minerals like iron, zinc, calcium, other minerals, that they can negatively affect the body. So what they did is they burned them. There's a way of processing these minerals, heating them over and over and over. So they took coral and pearls, which are a good source of calcium, and burned them and heated them until the molecules were small enough so that they could actually be absorbed into the bone and do benefits. So I thought this was really important to understand about calcium. It is an important part of the bone. It's an important mineral. However, it has to be coming out of food or from these basmas, these specially processed supplements that come from pearls and coral and are heated so that they can be assimilated by the body. So now we're getting to the end here about minerals. If you studied bone supplements at all, like I did for many, many years, you'll see that many, many different trace minerals are also important in bone building. And there is a product called Silajit that comes out of the Himalayas that is an important source of minerals that a lot of Ayurvedic physicians use. However, Silajit can be very heating to the liver. So what Dr. Mishra did is he took that product and transformed it into something called mineral support. And with this product, you can just put a couple of drops in the water that you drink. I'm not sure if you would add it to your herbal water. I think it would have to be different, two separate waters. And there's that for mineralization. And then there is a herb, a specific herb for building bone. The name is here on the screen. Cystius condrancularis is the Latin name. You can buy it from Chandika. They call it bone herb. And you can buy it in the same kind of drops as the mineral support. And just put two or three drops in your water. So these drops, the way they were built by Dr. Mishra, I say built or formulated, is that he created a way of taking the negative effects of the herbs that would make it hard on the liver and just keep the intelligence. It's not like homeopathy, it's just the vibration, the intelligence of the herb is transformed and transmitted to the glycerin, which is the carrier. And then you take these drops and the benefit is there of the herb. So that's a brief, condensed version of what I've learned from Dr. Mishra over 10, 15 years about looking after myself and my bones. Luckily, 20 years later, I still have fairly good bones. I fell recently on a trail. I was walking here where I live and really hit my shins really hard. Didn't break. That's my bone density test. So the other thing, of course, everyone knows the importance of weight-bearing exercise. I'm not undermining that. We all have to go for a walk, maybe do some weight training, and that puts stress on the bones and builds bones. And that's important. I like going for an early morning walk, builds the spirit as well as the. So I will say that, yes, I am promoting myself here. Until the end of October, I'm offering a discount in my services, 1 hour a week for 4 weeks for $400, which is less than what I normally choose. And now we will stop. And I'm excited. There are actually 4 people here. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So if you have any questions, we can start now.
You didn't get recorded, right? Or
I
you
did.
Oh, you did. Fantastic.
I recorded it, so I'll send it to you, Germaine.
Yeah, because I'm with my granddaughter, so I wasn't able to listen through, but lots of good information. Thank you very much, though. Something new I learned today, which I didn't know.
Good, because I know you know a lot about Ayurveda.
Right. But about that tea, actually, formulation, I never even heard, never came across. And when we talk, we never discussed that either. But I'll be in touch for sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Fantastic.
Hey, Lorraine, nice to see you. Are you at home, Lorraine? You're muted. Are you on your phone? You're trying to unmute your phone, but I can't hear you.
There. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to do it up above where the little red microphone was, but I had to do it down at the bottom. Okay. So, yes. My goodness.
You're in Coquitlam?
Yeah. I'm really flushed too. Good grief.
You've got nice color in your cheeks.
Yeah. Well, I've been out walking for a couple of hours doing stuff for the NDP. So,
for the election coming up.
Yeah, so I didn't get this message until I got back. So I only tuned into half of this.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'm just learning all the technology to be able to do this. And so I think the link I sent out to like 50 people wasn't the real link. So then I resent it. So I'm practicing. I'm gonna do this a couple more times this month and see that I improve with my technical skills. The lady who normally helps me with the technology lives in North Carolina, and she is in Asheville.
Oh, yeah.
So she's I just watched her. They're still suffering from the Hurricane Helena.
Oh, right. Yes.
Can't even
Yes.
get off their street. They don't have any things. So she just she did a little YouTube thing, walking around showing me. So,
Yeah, I know. I saw a lot of that on the news and stuff, and it looked horrible. Looked like really devastating.
so I know you, Lorraine, you've taken some interesting products for your bone concerns in the past.
Right. Like I don't, I mean, I'm still taking some homeopathic remedy that's supposed to be good for bones,
Oh,
according to a homeopath that I saw. Silicea. I
okay.
don't know if you know about that or not, but yeah, so that's something I'm still taking. I haven't seen her for quite some time, and she said just to take a certain amount of it each day. Anyway, I don't know if it's doing anything or not. I have no idea.
Yeah, so
But
we in Ayurveda, the main point at the beginning of the talk is how fat is important for building bone. I
right,
just sees that as a cascade, um, and then we looked at a lot of the fat soluble vitamins and what they do to support bone health, like vitamin K2 and
right,
vitamin A, and these are all fat soluble. So you can see why, the ancient doctors might have thought that fat in general is beneficial because fat also helps nutrients and herbs. A lot of Ayurveda doctors will actually cook herbs into ghee, clarified butter,
uh-huh.
and that helps to carry the herb into the cell where it can do its work.
Oh yeah, okay, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I do take vitamin K and vitamin D, and because I was told I was low on that. And I think I just came in where you were talking. What were you talking about at the beginning? Um,
See, I'll quickly scan through where is it?
I came in about halfway through, I think. So it was about 2:30 when I came in.
Okay. I don't know how to, oh, no.
Do you have this recorded anywhere
I'm
or
recording it right now. Yeah, I am.
okay? Are you going to send it out or
Yeah, I can send it to you. I'll just
yeah,
send it to people
right.
that were here today. Oh,
Yeah, and then I could go through it and read the ones that I didn't
yeah,
read before or wasn't here for.
right.
Elizabeth, quick question.
Go ahead.
Um, while my granddaughter is soaking in the bathtub. About vitamin D, she just actually mentioned that she's taking supplements, right? Which is hormone vitamin D and K2. Now, what's the Dr. Mishra's, as you were saying, it's just he was against, right? All of it to consume.
Well, the best vitamins come from food,
Right.
but the thing is that it depends on the person's condition of their liver. If you take anything you take orally, it's called first pass.
So
If you take something through the mouth, the portal vein takes it to the liver. The liver has to transform it. They're called P450 enzymes in the liver. Modern science has identified them. The ancient doctors called them burners. They said there were 5 burners in the liver, and that the liver had this ability to take anything you eat and make it right for your blood, because we're all different. And so that transformation happens in the liver. The problem is that this poor liver is detoxing all the chemicals in that we're exposed to. It's sometimes people take so many supplements that the liver can't keep up with the transformation. So unless it's something essential that, don't just start popping supplements for no reason, more like I recently talked to a woman who was taking a lot of omega-3s, and I think I saw a reference in one of Dr. Tattlebaum's book that if you take too much of it, it can cause a melanoma. And she recently was diagnosed with that. So, we have to be very careful and very selective, of what we take. And whether it comes from a lot of times, if you look at the supplement, there's magnesium stearate in there as a binder. There's all kinds of binders, and so if you can take it as find as good a quality one if you're going to take one at all.
Well, I was trying to ask about vitamin D because it's fat soluble, and most of the time liver is not even capable to process it because it's liver already overwhelmed. That's where I'm coming from. So whatever he has on his website, this is what I'm using for many years. It's actually up, but not as much as people saying. Besides, I was studying, you tell me if I'm wrong, I was reading a lot that vitamin D not in cell is basically in the bloodstream. So basically it's not even getting into the cell. It shows, but it shows in the blood work, but it's in the bloodstream, not in the cell.
Interesting, very interesting. I know that there's, and I'm continually learning more about vitamin D, I should say. I know that when it comes through the skin from sunshine, there's something that is transformed that makes it more accessible. Also, you can buy.
Sorry, I have to go. Sorry. Yeah, I have to go.
Anyway, thanks for bringing that up. I'll talk a little bit about it, and then I'll send you the recording.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. You can get skin topical vitamin D that you apply to the skin. Apparently, I know Chandika makes one, Dr. Mishra's company, but also there are now other people making topical vitamin D, just like topical magnesium that I talked about.
I'm good. I have
one.
one. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mary.
I have a vitamin D container in my fridge. It's a liquid. I'm going to go get it and tell you what it is. I was taking that for a while. I'm not right now, but hold on.
Taking it orally or applying it to the skin?
No, this isn't. No, you actually take a couple drops of it.
I won't know, Mary. Maybe
okay.
You send me the name or something. I can look it up.
All right, I can do that. Where I'm coming from, which is kind of caught between myself and the events of the last year and wanting to go forward and knowing that in the end, like my own mother at the age of just about 94 or somewhere over 92 anyway, had a fall and a serious break, and she was dead in 2 years following that. And I'd like to alter as best I can, and that's why I had bone density and I did this stuff, but I wasn't really planning to get as much into, this as what I now feel that I have to, but I want to do it in a way that makes sense. And I don't feel I have that right now. I just have people kind of pushing, oh, take this, take that. And just that's why I'm here.
Clarify for Lorraine as well that you what was the name of the drug, the infusion of the drug they gave you for bone? Do you remember? Mary got the infusion of a drug, bisphosphonate drug by infusion, and it's been over a year, and for several months afterwards, she had quite a few negative side effects, right?
Yeah. So much so that the doctor said, well, if you were 100% allergic to it, you just wouldn't be here. But you're as close as you can get to that. So don't ever take it again and just tell people you're allergic to it. So you just don't go near it. So then they talk about even more potent, and I can get these names and I can send them to you, but I don't know that that's what I'm after.
But remember, the thing is that bisphosphonates, these drugs, the only way they work is they prevent the bone from being reabsorbed. They're not really helping the bone to be rebuilt. They're just
I,
stopping the bone from being deteriorated or reabsorbed. They're not, there's so many parts that, I mean, when
yeah,
we look at all the parts of, the blood vessels going into the bone, the nerves, the bone marrow, and all of the things that have to happen. And that every
yeah,
10 years you have a completely new
yeah,
skeleton. The
yeah.
bone is constantly dissolving and rebuilding, dissolving and rebuilding. So
Yeah, I understand that, what you're saying. There is one that apparently does help rebuild, but they won't give it to you. They won't, I've applied for it and they said, no, you can't have it. And that's pretty standard here in BC. They just won't give it to you. And I don't know what
oh,
the criteria is,
well,
but I guess you have to have about 14 different major things wrong with you, then they might consider giving it. But they won't if they figure there's anything else. So I'm trying to rule out that. I want to come at it. I believe in the concept of food. I believe in the things that you're saying. I'm having trouble to locate to get any of this stuff. I couldn't even get the saliva papers here. The closest.
if I find a link, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, and the other kinds of things. So I will put it together because this is just kind of a reaction to what I've heard. The ghee, I wondered if there was one that I could buy that would help because a lot of days the choice for me is do I eat or don't I? Because I still having effects from the
That's why it's such a you only have to do one thing at a time. And if
yeah,
if of all the seven, that's why I said, oh, let's start with seven things you could do.
yeah,
Just do one thing for a week
yeah,
or two. So
yeah,
of all the things that, you know, forget the saliva testing because I mean that just gives you a baseline. Just
yeah,
make making ghee is not hard to do. You buy some organic butter and you cook it and the water boils off. And as I said, the activator X or vitamin K2 is 30 times more in ghee than in butter. So then you just take a teaspoon of it and you put it on your food. It's not a complicated thing.
you mean you just work with an organic butter? That's it?
Buy a pound of organic butter, you put it in a pot, you turn it on, and after about 20, 30 minutes, you'll see all the water is boiling off and all
Yeah.
the milk solids fall out. So you're just going to have pure fat. And so then that's all you do. And when you're cooking something, you put a teaspoon of ghee in it.
Oh, okay. So do you do that in a double boiler or anything, or just in a
Oh
regular
no,
pot?
a double boiler, you just put it in a pot.
Just put it in a
A
pot?
nice heavy pot
Yeah. Heavy enough for that. Yeah.
and just do that for a start because it's it's going to have a lot of the things in it that are going to support your bone, but not only
Yeah.
your bone, all kinds of things because the cell wall is made of cholesterol, it's fat. And
Yeah.
as I said, the Ayurvedic doctors actually cooked herbs into ghee and gave them to people because then the ghee carried those herbs into the cell. So you
Okay.
might get the bone herb eventually and cook it into the ghee. Just
Well,
a,
it wouldn't take, does it take long to cook the butter in that way so that it does that?
takes 30 minutes.
30
And
minutes?
what I'll do is when I make ghee, I'm going to videotape it and I'll put it on my website or something.
Okay. I'll,
Not hard to do.
no, no, no. Okay. I can do that. It's probably a fairly
Hard to
low
get. I
temperature
would call
too.
it if you can find something that says grass fed
Yeah.
house if you can,
Yeah,
but at least get organic, because I know some people, people don't mind spending $25, $30 on a supplement when they say, oh, $10 for butter. Oh my God, that's too much money. I'd rather buy the $4 or $5 one. But
yeah,
no,
yeah,
you don't use a lot of it.
yeah. Yeah, there's some good butters around in BC. So grass-fed and organic, I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm sure they're there.
Yeah.
So
And then magnesium, taking a nice relaxing bath, because I can see that you're really pressured and stressed right now.
yeah,
So magnesium would help to relax your mind as well.
yeah, yeah.
Also, it's mineralization of the bone. So if you, two things, okay, put a little butter on your food, take a nice warm magnesium bath. How about two things you could do?
Well, give me one more, because where I am now, I just have a shower. I don't actually have a bathtub, so I
Okay,
need.
get something like a basin or something. Put some basin magnesium in water and soak your feet.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
You don't get leg cramps,
Um, very not very often. Not not
like a
not like I would be complaining.
Charlie horse. Never get a Charlie horse. No,
Not no, not
possibly your magnesium's not bad.
yeah. But that would still be a good thing for the feet to soak them. I have a basin for that, but I just have to get the right kind. Yeah. Uh, okay.
So then the other thing would be the hydration. So
Oh,
you
yes,
getting
yes.
getting some of the toxins out.
Yeah. For
You'd
me,
have,
that would be
you'd have to
key.
find a supply of Indian sarsaparilla, because that would really detox your fat tissue.
Uh,
I can send you the link for that.
okay, okay. I might need that because there's not too much that I've found here. Like I've been to seaweeds and there's not a whole lot of stuff there.
Mhm.
So um I I don't really know beyond that. Um I would like I'll be looking for a place or a link or a way, or maybe in Vancouver. If I go across, I could get a few things, but I would like to do the mouth pH because I have developed a dry mouth since I took a fall, a hit when I was in a run and I got pushed and I fell. And since I had the tooth work done after that, then my mouth has been very dry. And I'd like to